Thank you for tuning in to another week of Help Nobody Told Me. I'm Jasmine Shapiro with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services in Chicago, here with my team member, Jordan Kagan, who is the man of silver.
And we're happy to have everyone joining in to listen today for another great episode of Help Nobody Told Me. Our guest today is a friend of mine, Marla.Goldberg. She is the Community Outreach Liaison for CJE SeniorLife. She's been in this role for the past 3 years, but I think what makes her so special, one reason why I invited her to participate, is she really has a nice, diverse background, which I really think has made her so excellent what she does today. She's been a volunteer services coordinator and supervisor. Her career path includes healthcare and social work professions, leading her to her current work in senior services. And I think it is all of these roles, including even from when she was a kid, that just has led her to love working with volunteers. Hobby-wise, some jazzercise, some mahjong, some theater, like food and scrapbooking. So welcome, Marla.
Thank you, Jordan, and thanks for asking me to be with you today.
My pleasure.
So tell us what drew you to a volunteer coordinator and community outreach in particular.
Thanks for asking. I would say I had a wonderful volunteer. I've always been a volunteer, probably teenager up and out of college. I sat on a board. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was a great beginning. And learning how organizations work, I think I'm always interested in learning about organizations and the way they work, and then the people who are involved. And I think it's been interesting to see the juxtaposition between staff and volunteers and how that meshes or doesn't. And I had some wonderful volunteer experience, and I think that my sister has a saying, she's very involved as a volunteer, the doers do. So it's hard to sit on the sidelines, I think, when you know there's work to be done. And I think I'm always drawn to service with the background in healthcare and social work. I think helping is what I was wired to do. And I love volunteer as a choice.
I love that.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So our podcast, Shannon, Jasmine, Mindy, and I that make up this senior resource team, really have created this to help seniors and their families and things like that. So with you working both in a senior community, the arena, and the volunteer hat, what benefits do you see for seniors to volunteer?
It's been my experience to zoom in with the seniors and get to have relationships and enjoy the relationships I've been making with seniors who are residents in our communities. And I think if you have done volunteer work, it's sort of in your gut, in your being, in your soul. And what I think I was trying hard to think about, if you asked me a question like this, that what I could answer. And I think volunteering offers the opportunity to continue to have meaning in your life, to continue to have purpose, to contribute back. If you feel that you're gracious and lucky enough to have a good life, what can you give back to the world? I think, I know as a youngster growing up that I watched my parents volunteer. So it's not a mistake that I'm involved with volunteers, whether it was I was like, oh, maybe I like it and maybe they'll pay me for it, and that's good too. So but I still think you have to have the heart for it, because it is going sort of above and beyond, and then respecting when people come to you and say, I want to volunteer, and then it's sort of philosophy on how you fill that need for them and your own needs of the organization and what they have.
Do they always come to you, or do you sometimes suggest, like, you would be great at volunteering, Like, do you ever get those moments?
I think I love the idea of that. I think I'm more about if somebody comes and they're not sure, because a lot of people aren't sure, they just know they're looking for something, is to kind of tease out from them what gives them joy, what makes them happy, what can they contribute. Because I have found myself, and maybe you have as well, that as a volunteer, sometimes people want to peg you into the role that you already have. So if you have a marketing background, they're like, oh, can you help us with marketing? And sometimes what I found was that in volunteering, you can try new skills. And so you have an investment sort of in yourself succeeding, and that's pretty motivating if you think about it. Who doesn't want to be successful? And so I guess that's the part I really always found intriguing, is to try to find what the person was most interested in, how could it work with what's available.
So as you sort of just said, someone volunteering for a new position could find them something they really love to do. And that's sort of what happened in your life. You were first a volunteer. It was so much something you enjoyed so much, saw growing up. You felt like it was in your blood, and now you get paid for doing what you love to volunteer to do in the past.
I did, and I did for 3 years. And then you asked how I transitioned, I think, into this community outreach, which I think is almost a natural extension, if you will, of the volunteer work in a way. And that I took a promotion. It was open, and I was like, I need to make a little more money. So I did. I jumped on board, and actually the job before this was outreach, and it meant it was different but the same in that it was obviously pre-COVID, and it would be where I actually worked for a national organization. We were on Zoom before anybody knew what Zoom was, because we were stationed all over the United States. And I would call, and our senior leadership of that organization would travel, and if they were coming to town, I would call blind cold calling into synagogues at that time to see if they wanted to host this leadership person who was coming to town. And then that translated into what I do now a little bit, in that starting with volunteers and then moving into this community outreach is this whole networking concept, which was needed to find a job to begin with.
Right.
And there's a whole art and science, I think, to networking. Jordan, who seems to be one of the kings
Yes.
in the business. And then...
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so, again, it's sort of, sometimes they're cold calls, sometimes obviously networking is cold meeting, but it's nice to kind of build and sow seeds to develop relationships that might take years to come to fruition or find a way. I was working with somebody you might know who is in a adjacent field of home care, and I'll never forget, I'm in a small networking group, and he saw me at a holiday party and said, you can't do anything for me, but I love you anyway. And I was really like a little bit unnerved by that comment, because I was like, what is, networking, you're helping each other. And we somehow have found ways now. He found a way for me to partner with him.
Oh, good.
To do an activity in the community. And I was able to today get off the phone with him and say, I have a similar opportunity. Do you want to go in together like he was able to do with me? So that's so fun to me, to have it sort of come all the way around.
Yeah.
And be beneficial for all. So I think it's sometimes sowing seeds and not knowing how it will come out.
I say it so often. It's spring, and and summer will be here soon, that in life we're about planting seeds.
Mm-hmm. You do like that.
And if we don't plant seeds, they'll never grow. And that was your relationship with him. He respected you. You earned his respect. He earned your respect. There was never a thought that maybe it would go somewhere, and eventually it did.
You don't know sometimes.
And that is the point of networking. You never know, but if you can work together with somebody, let's do it. I respect you, I know you, and now I finally have an opportunity.
And I think that's one reason we're doing this podcast too. We're hoping to plant seeds for people to be aware of topics or experts or things where they maybe never knew where to turn or could turn to for help.
Absolutely. And that's how we came up with this name, Help Nobody Told Me.
I like it.
Because Shannon was going through, difficult time with her parents, moving them from out of state
Wow.
here to Chicago, and just all the things that went into that. And when we were brainstorming on what we should call this podcast, she said, I wish somebody would have helped me. I didn't know how to do anything. And we were like, hello, it's our V8 moment. Help, nobody told me. And that's what we are trying to do. You're right, Jordan. We're trying to give people a little bit of information. So,
I think it's a great gift.
Yep.
It's really a lovely gift.
So as far as, you mentioned this one story, do you have any other memorable stories involving volunteers and their impact on the senior community?
I think there's benefit. I actually drilled down to think of one that I thought was super important at the time. So I think it surprised me a little bit about during COVID that we had people who were willing and wanting to go into our senior community living
Right.
spaces during COVID when there was mostly not good news coming out of
Yes.
those communities. And they had to go through a lot. They had to gown up, mask up. They had to take a test on infectious disease about COVID. I mean, it's not a big thing, but an hour at least of time that you're taking an exam. And they went in and they helped our residents reach out on an iPad to their families. And
That's
they knew
beautiful.
they were needed. Obviously, the resident needed the connection. I mean, it's a simple, and it wasn't one and done. It was ongoing. It was pretty
Wow.
amazing. So that's an impact that I think went beyond measure that we could know.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. New respect for humanity, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the most challenging and trying times
Right.
we've ever lived through
Right.
in our lifetime, certainly at least in this country.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your employer that you work with, CJE for Senior Life.
I work for CJE SeniorLife. I consider it a privilege and an
Tell
honor.
our listeners what CJE is.
CJE SeniorLife is a large, well ingrained in the community, I believe, senior service organization. I say we provide a variety of senior services, a lot of front-facing or client-facing or community-based services like counseling. We have a department in we have a department for Holocaust community, for the survivors, for the families of the survivors. We have home delivered meals. That is our program that is under the affiliation of Meals on Wheels. We have benefit services that help people access government benefits. We have a legal department that is almost unheard of. It's endowed, which says somebody thinks very highly of these services and wants them available to our seniors. They, of course, focus on end-of-life documents most of the time, but they are there to be helpful in many ways. We have another service that many went away, or care management, where we actually, you call in, you get assigned an intake worker that right there on the phone. If it's an emergent situation, it gets handled quickly. If it can wait, you get set up right there and then with an appointment with our intake team, who are all qualified clinical people. So they are listening, because you and I all know that people wait. This is one of my lines. They wait and they wait and they wait and they wait and they wait. And guess what? It's no longer one problem they're calling with.
Right.
So that intake person can help them sort and prioritize.
Wow.
Another gem of a service that I refer to that is unbelievable is our adult day service program, many of which went away during COVID. So that is a day program for people who have often mild toward moderate cognitive impairment. It can be Alzheimer's. It can be other forms of dementia. They're evaluated. It's a day program. Up north in Deerfield, it runs 9 to 5. Over on Howard Street in Evanston, it runs, I believe, 9 to 3. If you live within a certain radius, you can pay for transportation. There's veterans benefits that help offset the cost. And it is really special. And people are worked with individually. There's volunteers that come in and do programming there with music, all sorts of things. There's music therapists around. There are movement therapists around. There are art therapists around. So we are really so lucky with our staff and the people who serve in these roles who really, this means so much to them. And it also gives the caregivers, right, an opportunity to take care of their business, to do a shopping without somebody for the moment, to make their own doctor's appointments. And I'd love to plug one little thing, if you don't mind. Something new that's come out, we have a side business, if you will, called Dementia Reality, and we have put together family caregiver trainings that run 2.5 hours that we're only charging $35 for, that incorporate 3 major pieces, which is peoplehood, talks about the disease, and you go onto your headsets, which are 360-degree and an immersive experience on kind of integrating all that.
Cool.
And you find the people you take the training with are your own support people, and how important it is to care for the caregiver.
Yeah.
So,
And that just started, that program?
it's been bubbling, and actually I think we're kind of on a nice trajectory. My colleagues just went to a convention up in Green Bay, and we're working to, sell the program. But in the meantime, we're also doing these family caregiver trainings, and they're very, very impactful. That's all I went through it. I'm dealing with it. I'd be transparent. That's one of my qualities or not. I have a mom who has mild dementias, and it reminds me that she's a person.
Yeah.
Simply put, she's a person. How do I want to relate to her? What part's of the disease? She is not the disease. The disease is part of her, but that's not who she is.
So true. Did I hear recently that, like, let's say someone has no family or no family locally, that it's a possibility CJE does some guardianship of people?
That's not true, so let's dispel.
Okay, thank you.
But there are resources available, and I don't have them immediately on me. I'd be able to supply that for you later.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
a specialty, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I actually got those resources from our legal department, because that's been a question about twice in the 3 years I worked.
Talk to me about some of the different, you talked about day services in Deerfield, day services in Howard. Some of the other, I know you have some residential facilities where people can live. And
So,
the
that's great.
and the case management, you said, and that whole process, what's that look like?
So I'm happy to tell you that CJE has a history in senior living. So I love to go out in the communities. I go to senior expos, even on a golf course when I'm manning a hole for a golf outing. If people ask.
Standing next to me.
Yes, on a good day, I get to have a partner in crime. Those synergies keep working. But what was I going to say? I was going to say,
Sorry.
that's okay.
About the senior living community.
Right. So over time, we have our Deerfield campus that has our Weinberg community for senior living. That is all assisted living.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is Gidwitz. And then we have a nice long hallway. We have our ADS program that works out of the Friends Center side. And Friends Center is assisted living with memory support. It's a little nuanced. Some people might say memory care. I say it's assisted living with memory support. It's beautiful, the care they get. Each side has their own programming. For holidays, often they come together, even with ADS if it's during the weekday. And then right across the way is Tamara's North Shore. CJE is the management partner to investors who own Tamara's North Shore, which was built and opened crazily in 2020. I'm proud to say we're at about 85% occupancy, and that is independent living. And that means basically you might see people with mobility devices, you might see people with full-time caregivers, but they are living on their own, and it is a beautiful, beautiful building with great amenities, dining, a very enriched life enrichment programming and events, and people live there, and it was built to be competitive. It's a little higher end on the rental. It's a rental versus a CCRC, which is continuous community of retire.
Or you buy
community-
into.
You buy in. That is not it. So
Right.
we are month to month, which gives people a lot of flexibility. A lot of our adult children find that it's really a nice match for their parents. It's close to their homes. It's close to their grandchildren. So it's a beautiful, beautiful community. We also have communities that are, we call them affordable housing. Some people might call them subsidized. Those have been with us for a number of years. One is right by our lovely Delighter building, where many of our counseling services, I was saying those client-facing services are offered out of Delighter, which is just at 2 by the J.C. Horwich JCC adjacent. And on the back of the parking lot is one of our buildings is Schwartzberg House, and one of our buildings is Krasno, and that's up on not Nile Center, Grosse Point Road, and another one is at Village Center, which is like Grosse Point, right by where in
Skokie
Skokie,
Village Hall.
by the Village Hall, by the theater, right where it turns into Lincoln. So that's Village Center. And then we have this marvelous other gem, what we call our group housing, and that is our Robino building, which is on Howard Street, west of Crawford, west of McCormick, west of Crawford, but east of Cicero.
Exactly.
So this is all in the Chicagoland area.
Yes, moving out towards Skokie, and then we have our Deerfield campus, but we
Right.
serve a lot of in-betweens.
Right. But you said something about it being national?
No, the national organization was who I worked for before.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted to clarify.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
But many Jewish federations were part of our Jewish Federation here in Chicago, and many Jewish federations across the United States will have something special for senior
Okay,
services.
so if somebody who was not living in Illinois listening to this podcast would like to look into it, they should start with their Jewish Federation.
They can start with their federation, and the other advice I give people that they don't think of is if they're not in a city proper, they're not in Chicago, and they're in a suburb, that many suburban villages have senior services or resources they supply.
Okay.
Your library is a resource, it's a government building, things that we don't think of. So those are often what I tell people to start.
And I just was at a senior fair last week, and like Northbrook Police Department said they have a senior services liaison from the police department. So people, you know, if you don't know where to turn, there's a lot of government things. As you said, the village, the park district, maybe a police
Townships.
department. Townships.
Your congressman might have contacts for you.
Really?
State rep, state senator.
They come to networking things too.
That's fabulous information.
And I think it's just, we don't, again, help, I didn't know where to even start.
Right.
So I think they're important to have starting points. I think your church also, they know more people than we do that,
Right.
serve seniors or they're involved with seniors, or on holidays, this is the time, we're coming into Passover and Easter, this is the time where families get together, and all of a sudden you're seeing changes in your parent.
Yes.
Jordan knows I like to say everybody's one fall away from
Yes.
having decisions made for you. So I'm a firm believer in talking about the hard subjects, whether it's long-term care insurance, whether it's senior living, whether it's what's it
Having
going to
a
be.
caregiver in the home, whether, whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
Even the legal documents.
Legal documents.
Very-
your
Before
wishes.
you have dementia, before you have an issue, having the long do not resuscitates, medical
Powers of
directives,
attorney. all
powers of
that.
attorney,
Right.
an updated will.
And we have
There are
had
some people that haven't updated their wills from pre-COVID, and this is a whole new era.
Right. And
There's
we,
very subtle changes.
we have had guests on talking about,
Nice.
wills and trusts and things like that, because it is a whole topic in itself.
And our legal department runs workshops in the community. So like even in Evanston and the Park District centers, if you will. So
That's
we're
fabulous.
available.
So there's plenty of information out there should somebody need it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And once again, thank you for tuning in to our podcast today of Help Nobody Told Me.